Hey, what's up? This is Kelvin. I'm doing this video to talk about my top 10 favorite albums of 2022. And I didn't do any like honorable mentions on this one. I'm just going to kind of keep it brief. So I made some previous like favorite albums based on kind of like, death metal, black metal, speed metal, deathcore. And so I kind of brought everything together on one list. And I also got a couple albums that I didn't mention on any of those other lists because they don't quite follow into with those categories. So I'm gonna go ahead and start. So number 10 favorite album is gonna be Queensryche, and the name of the album is Digital Noise Alliance. I did a little research. This is Queensryche's 16th album, and it's their fourth album to feature the vocalist Todd Latore. And this is the first time I actually checked out a Queensryche album. Now, not that doesn't have like Jeff Tate, because I'm probably like most people who know Queensryche for the Jeff Tate material. My favorite is Operation Mindcrime. But yeah, this is my first listen of the new vocalist Todd. And yeah, it was fucking amazing. I really like it. Really reminds me, some of the guitar parts remind me of certain old Queensryche songs. I think like the song Sick Death, track 4, has a little bit of Queen of the Reich moments on guitar. And then, yeah, the vocalist Todd, he's, has a good voice and really does fit in with the band. Probably doesn't hit the highs as high as Jeff Tate, but still, it's a good album. Here's the disc. I really like the album cover. Just like I've said it before, anything with like DNA or anything with like science-y like stuff on the cover, I'm gonna be a fan of. And I really enjoyed like DNA, cell biology, and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just a cool album. And I'll just play a quick clip. But yeah, if you haven't heard this album, definitely fucking check it out. Number 9, I have I Am Eternal Steel. And this album, I believe it's their third album. And I Am, going back, they started kind of as a deathcore band, and then they've slowly evolved their sound into what they sound like on this album, which is a hybrid of like death metal, thrash metal, hardcore. So it's really cool. Kind of the way when I first kind of heard the new song, which song was it? They put out a song over the summer, the Iron Gate, like right away just reminded me of Pantera, and just the groove, kind of like the groove metal and the groovy riffs. And then like the guitar, like especially like the thrash parts, definitely remind me of like Power Trip. So you could say it's kind of like a fusion of like Power Trip and Pantera, which makes sense, both bands being from Texas and I Am being from Texas. So yeah, it's definitely an appropriate like I guess comparison. But yeah, that's a sick album. Definitely check it out. My favorite song is the song Eternal Steel. So yeah, if you haven't heard it, yeah, check it out. All right, next, this was one of my more like anticipated albums of the year. I didn't talk about it much on any other list, just because it didn't really fall into either of those lists I made previously. But it's the Halo Effect, and the name of the album, Days of the Lost. So Halo Effect, they are, I think I have the CD in my CD player, but anyway, Halo Effect is a supergroup. It's comprises of kind of previous band members of In Flames, and has the vocalist Michael Stan of Dark Tranquillity. And so I'd say probably sounds to me more like Dark Tranquility, but the other members of the band, they are band members from In Flames, and it's the In Flames lineup from like the 90s is where most of the band members are kind of coming from. So it's kind of cool just to see that old members of like the 90s era In Flames came together and are in a band now with the Dark Tranquility vocalist, who I believe did play in Flames for like a year or so. So yeah, they all came together and wanted to relive the glory days of like the melodic death metal scene. So I think it's pretty cool, and I think they're really pushing In Flames to make heavier music, because if you follow In Flames, they made some songs that are like kind of more heavy, more on the like Swedish death metal style that they're most well known. But they In Flames like became like kind of like a almost like a new metal band like the last like almost 20 years. But I think the new In Flames album is definitely influenced by this album from Halo Effect. So yeah, I definitely recommend it. All right, this is going to be number 7 on my list of top 10 albums, and it's Vital Spirit. The name of the album, Still as the Night, Cold as the Wind. This is the first album from Vital Spirit. They released a EP in 2020, and this is like the follow-up full album. And I was just like looking forward to this as soon as it was announced. I immediately checked out I think I got the cassette version because the cassettes and CDs came out first, and then the vinyl came out later, but got the vinyl. And yeah, I'm just a big fan of their sound. They're a black metal band with like Western kind of like film music with this black metal they've created. And then a lot of the lyrics and their topics of their music is focused around the U.S. Southwest history, and a lot of songs kind of tie into Native American history as well. So it's a really cool album for, the definitely is well-rounded. The album cover is fucking sick. The music is awesome. Their lyrical content and focus is, really cool too. So yeah, definitely one of my favorites. And then number 6 on my list here is Wake, Thought Form Descent. I talked about this on the best of death metal list I made. And yeah, I'm just a big fan of this album. I've kind of followed Wake, honestly, just since like 2020 during the pandemic when they put out Devouring Ruin. That's kind of when I took notice. And this album kind of just pulls more in the direction of like progressive metal with some black metal atmosphere. Really reminds me of like Opeth. And the song to definitely check out is Swallow the Light. I don't know, just the way the song starts, just starts really kind of like really clean, really kind of like slow, kind of like riffing, and then it just like it just kicks into like a really fast paced like almost like black metal tempo, and then it kind of dials back down, and you kind of get the atmospheric parts with the kind of like the clean guitar, and that part right there kind of reminds me of like the Opeth that's why I make the Opeth comparison. So yeah, it's really fucking awesome album. Yeah, you should definitely check it out. Next one is going to be my 5th favorite album, and I haven't talked about this one either. and it's the Kardashev album Liminal, Rite. And yeah, I don't think I've showed this record before to anyone's like, as far as like these like videos I make, but um pretty cool, like gray marble vinyl. So the band Kardashev, they're, I would say, like a progressive, maybe like death metal with some black metal. They are from Tempe, Arizona. Yeah, this is only their second album. It's really kind of amazing, the sound that they created on this album. The band I can probably think off the top of my head to compare them to is the Contortionist. But Kardashev are definitely heavier. Guitars are heavier, and the vocals are more got death and black metal style. And there's also some clean vocals too. But yeah, definitely like a heavier, more extreme version of the Contortionist. So yeah, I highly recommend it. It's a really cool album. And number four on my top 10 list, this I talked about this on my death metal best of list. It's Tzompantli. It's the first full length album from Tzompantli, and it's if you're not aware, it's Tzompantli. It's a death doom metal band out of Los Angeles, California, and their focus is death doom, but the kind of like the visuals and the lyrics are kind of more influenced by like Central American history, especially like the Mayan Aztec culture. So it's really cool to see that indigenous focus on such a heavy album, like a death doom album with like indigenous themes. It was really cool to see. And yeah, definitely the music is super fucking heavy. Yeah, I super highly recommend it. Probably the best death metal album of the year. And then next, number three, I don't have the record. I ordered it, but it's still on its way. But it's Blackbraid with the Blackbraid I. And yeah, this is my favorite black metal album of the year. And yeah, it's a one-man black metal from New York. And yeah, I just can't say enough good things about this album. It's really heavy, really probably like the best sounding like album from like an indigenous like group or band. And yeah, it's just cool seeing all the worldwide recognition that this album is getting from people all over, fans and journalists and just the press. Like I think like Rolling Stones mentioned it like as the best of. So yeah, it's just really cool to see that recognition for Blackbraid. And yeah, I really hope that there's like new material coming out next year in 2023. But yeah, if you haven't checked it out, you're missing out. All right, my number two favorite album of 2022, and this is an album that I've honestly been listening to over and over again, like ever since it came out. You can see I got the shirt here. So I was a big fan of this Sumerlands album that came out in 2016. So this one, it came out. I remember hearing it and kind of actually reminded me of Van Halen, the first song on this album's The Seventh Seal. I don't know, I'm a fan of like classic rock radio, but the Van Halen song Ain't Talk About Love, like Pretty much, yeah. That opening riff from that first track of Now on that first Sumerlands album reminds me of that. And then the vocalist on the first album, he doesn't have like the range as the new vocalist on this album. This is the album. This is my number 2 album. This is Sumerlands Dreamkiller. But going back to that first Sumerlands album, I feel like the vocalist kind of, wasn't elevating the band to, their potential. And, it's a good album. I really enjoyed it. But I think this album with their new vocalist just pushes them over the top. The vocalist, I looked into it. His name's Brendan Radigan. He was previously in a band called Magic Circle. He got recruited to do vocals on this new Sumerlands album, and I think just that vocalist change just brings them like over the top. And then they also added some keyboard synthesizers to the music on the Dreamkiller album, which I think that too just gives that extra like retro 80s style, just like a background, atmosphere throughout the album. And yeah, it really just reminds me of like, Ozzy, Dio, Dokken, pretty much any like fast like 80s metal you hear like on classic radio. Classic rock radio is, what this Sumerlands album kind of fits with. So yeah, it just gets better every time I listen to it. And I mean, if I probably listened to it enough times, I would have probably made it my number 1. But yeah, check out Sumerlands if you haven't. It's really, really good. And then my number 1 album is Hangman's Chair, Loner. And this came out early in the year. I want to say like in February. And I found out about it just because, I follow a lot of bands on like social media, Instagram, and the band Iris. I spoke with their guitarist, but I was following Iris's like Instagram stories, and they shared a song from this album. And yeah, just that first like listen, I was just immediately hooked on this band. And I think a lot of times, I'll really know if a band will put out like something I'm going to enjoy and talk about on a year-end like list or review. If that first time I listen to it, if it like sticks on that first listen, it's almost always going to be something I'm going to talk about at the end of the year. But yeah, this album, it's just full of like songs that are just super catchy. Like the first 4 songs, like definitely. And I think my favorite song is the track number 7, Loner. Yeah, it's just a really catchy like doom metal. The vocals kind of do have like a gothic style, and then there's also sections, between the doom riffs and doom sections where it's like a shoegazy style that they play. But yeah, it's extremely catchy, very yeah, it's gonna make you want to listen to it more and more and more, which is why it's my favorite album of the year. And yeah, that's my list. That's my top 10. And if you watch the other videos, I talked about more albums, but this one was kind of a more concise like top 10 albums. But yeah, I hope everyone has got to check out some cool music this past year. And this is something I like to do every year. I like to do these lists, and it just helps me keep track of the music that comes out on a year-to-year basis. And then it just kind of just goes along with what I'm going through, kind of like life, what I'm listening to. And then when I go back to it, it just kind of takes me back to the time and place. And that's what I've enjoyed this past year. So I hope everyone enjoys that and gets to check out some of these videos. And yeah, if there's like something I totally missed, yeah, let me know. I like when people tell me there was a band that needs to be checked out. So, but yeah, thanks again. I really hope everyone has a good new year. Peace out. Be safe. Yeah.